Yeah, well, athletes and entertainers are difficult with regard to those subjects. So Bob, really, that demystification is really powerful.
So you're not really selling the firm at that point. You're selling the process of picking a money manager.
Well, yeah, I mean, we want to get them excited about our values, because we think that they probably, because they're so successful, had similar values. And if they don't have those values, they might not be a good fit for us. We'd rather find out right there and then in that meeting. But it is, in a sense, in a very genuine way, pushing them away a little bit. We're not intentionally trying to push them away, but we want them to know that what's most important to us is that this is a good fit. And if our values are a fit, then the relationship's going to endure the test of time, and it's going to be able to withstand the inevitable challenges that exist in any client-advisor relationship.
Very good. Jeff, there was reference made by Robert and indirectly by you about not showing investment proposals and ending up with sizable accounts. Maybe you could talk for a minute on the heels of Brian's comments about how that works.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, but we were fortunate last year to have closed some significant business. And I want to say there was 4 large cases that I recall. 3 out of the 4 never saw a proposal. Money got wired in before they saw it. But on the heels of what Robert was saying and what Brian is saying, we will invest 3 to 4 months, like Robert said, into a situation. Pro bono, of course, with the hopes that we'll land the business. But by the time this client sees how much work we're doing up front on behalf of them, really addressing the things that keep them up at night, because let's face it, I don't know how everyone's business here is structured, but I think it's probably very similar. We're all dealing with very wealthy people. Them earning, 100 basis points over the S&P or 200 basis points, that's not meaningful to them. They don't want to lose their money. We all have heard this before. We're here to keep them wealthy, not make them wealthy. But it's all this work that we do up front to really get to the nitty-gritty of what keeps them up at night. And it could be education, it could be health, it could be philanthropy, it could be estate planning, it could be just how do you not lose money? Now look, we do have to talk about how we invest money. Call a spade a spade. I don't want to spend much time talking about that today, because that's not the core essence of the conversation. But it's kind of nice when you get a large wire in and you haven't shown a proposal. But it really is just a function of the things that we're already doing.
Robert, can you take us through or give us an example of a sophisticated problem that you had to bring your expertise to, and how that sort of played out?
Okay, so we come across all kinds of bizarre situations. Someone the other day, he mentioned, I think it was Rick Elman, was talking about the advancement with technology and nanotechnology and all these different things that are going to advance people's lives. And I think a lot of that technology is going to disrupt fintech and come into this industry, which is helpful and useful, and we've used some of it. One example is data aggregation, and we've used a couple different tools where a client had a situation, they needed to borrow money. We're not a bank, so we go out and we form relationships with several of the large banks. We don't do the lending per se, and they can do very specific lending off that asset. So we crafted a deal where we had money parked at multiple custodians in the custodial departments of multiple banks. We used data aggregation to tie it all together, so we had a web portal. And then we did an asset under what we'll call advisement deal, where we're actually controlling the money getting paid on assets that are held in multiple banks. And this guy's running a $30 to $40 million lending facility that we helped set up for 3 different real estate businesses. And it's just an example of using technology, but solving a client's issues. Lending was an issue, it was outside of our firm's jurisdiction, but there's always ways of coming up with these very creative solutions. And when you do that, the client's, that was his most pressing issue.
Interesting. Brian, for a second, talk about extending existing relationships. Somebody's been a client, you're getting to know them. What comes after all that?
I talked a little bit about that yesterday, and it's this idea that if we as advisors can learn what, what the burning issues are for our clients, then we're in a powerful position to affect change for that person and have a dramatic impact on, what they're doing. And, there's a lot of examples of how we do this. And every client's different. Sometimes it's a health issue, sometimes it has to do with philanthropy. So an example, one very, very important relationship of ours, who's an accountant, who, has referred us some very important clients over the last 10 years. I learned early on in the relationship that this person was really wanting to understand how to be better at philanthropy. I sit on many boards, educational boards, nonprofit boards, client boards for their foundations. I have a lot of experience in this area. And what I began to do was educate her as to how she could better approach this. She started looking at me a little bit different, and she was starting to attend a lot of the things that I go to on a regular basis. And she goes, wow, she goes, how do you have time to do all this? I go, this is important stuff, and I'm passionate about it. One of her clients was about to make a major gift, a 7-figure gift to a very well-known organization, will not say any names. And I said, that sounds cool, but I have a better idea. And ultimately, we redirected that 7-figure gift to a like organization that also received naming rights for the client's mother who had recently passed. So now I'm not talking to her about 8% versus 6%. I'm talking to her about things that are really important. And, it also made her look good because the client's like, wow, we were able to do this. Because the gift that was about to go to Foundation XYZ, it's a massive organization. There was going to be no transparency, there was going to be no control over how that gift was made. We controlled every part of that gift. We built the new facility. We got the naming rights. It's a big deal. And the client continues to give. And so that's an example of how, we take relationships to another level. And what it does is, subconsciously, almost, they just want to give you more money. They trust you so much. They value your guidance and the things that you're adding to the relationship so much. Look, I don't want anybody in this room to think for a second that we don't take very seriously the managing the money part. We are incredibly proud of the team that we haven't said one word about today. But I'm just saying is that it's a given. Anybody in this room that's getting called to the table, to the party, it is assumed that you know what you're doing. It is assumed that you're really good. But at the end of the day, that client is smart enough to know that whoever they choose is probably going to be adequate and maybe even exceptional, and all exceptional. But then what are those other things that they think they're going to get from you? And that's why it's so important in that initial meeting, Bob, to do a really good job asking the right questions.
Brian, comment for a second about, I've experienced this because of all the people you've referred to me and me, to you and all that. You are a skilled connector, but talk about that for a second. Matching up people in your clientele and your network with one another because you believe they can be in some way helpful to one another. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah, connecting the dots, right? I wanted to leave everybody in this room with an actionable idea. I might as well do it now.
You have 10 minutes, so it's a good time.
Might as well do it now because we're already 10 minutes. I don't think there's anything more powerful or a more productive hour or two that you can spend during the week other than to sit down with your partners, lock yourselves up. It could be over coffee, it could be over a beer, whatever, and sit down and kind of go through your most important relationships. Look at each of those relationships and ask yourselves, what can we do for each of these people that's going to make an impact, that's going to move the needle in their game of life. Now, it might be a client, and that client has got 3 kids that are about to go to college. I mean, you heard yesterday, and you heard from RJ the night before about how powerful that is. Education is on the forefront of everybody's mind. We cannot count the number of kids that we've gotten into schools over the last 10 years. It's in the hundreds that otherwise would not have gone where they ended up. it might be an attorney that you think is just amazing, a trust and estates person who you think is just extraordinary, and you really want to help them grow their business. So we go through our list of not only clients who might need some help, but also other advisors that they might enjoy meeting. And you know, this is easy, but it just takes some thought. It takes some time to spend to actually do it, and then to follow up on it and make it happen. You can talk about it, but if you don't actually execute on it, then it's hard to do. So these are just, right, these are advocacy issues that I talked about, and I hope that helps.
Oh, that helps a lot. Jeff, you know, one of the things that we've had an ongoing conversation about is how you differentiate yourself in an industry from an outsider's perspective that oftentimes sounds very much alike. You know, I get called pretty regularly from, you know, teams of money managers about, you know, and I sit down with a lot of them because I'm always curious about, you know, how they present themselves. But talk for a second about how do you differentiate? What is it that keeps that client? I mean, obviously you have to do something to differentiate yourself to get the asset.
Yeah.
How do you keep it?
Yeah. So I got a good story here. I'll be brief. So we were at the Barron's conference last month, right? I get an SOS call from a client that her mother fell ill, had a nervous breakdown, a bad breakdown. This is a very wealthy divorcee with a large estate, with one beneficiary who was a 30-year-old daughter. 3 years ago, I told the client, we need to get the daughter into the quarterly review meetings. You know, the next generation, of course. I was just concerned because I genuinely care about the welfare of every single client we have, but I particularly was concerned about making, because this 30-year-old daughter, she's the sole beneficiary of what will someday be a very large amount of money. So I spent 3 years with the 30-year-old daughter from age 27 to 30, and now her first call when her mom fell ill was to me. And that, I think, exemplifies how you solidify your relationships with your clients. So of course, we got the trust attorney, the CPA, the trust revised. She became co-trustee. She came to my office. I sat with her for probably 2 hours at my computer, logging on to every bank account to find out what damage had been done financially, because the mom went a little bit nuts and started sending money and buying things. And the thank you note that I got on that one from the family was, you know, heartfelt. And just kind of, you go home that day from work and you just feel like, wow, you really did something special for somebody. We do a lot of little things. You know, it's funny. So these group meetings I was talking about earlier, the weekly team meetings, something came up in a phone call. One of our associates had a conversation with a client who he was all excited his daughter got her driver's license that day. And so he comes to the team meeting, he goes, you know, so-and-so's daughter is 16, she just got her driver's license. They're so excited. And then Daniela, one of our CSA, says, we should send her a really nice keychain. Just like, I don't remember who made the keychain. It was like something that 16-year-old girls would like. And the phone call that comes back from that was, this is a big client. I want to say this is like a, I don't know, $30, $40 million client. And he just could not be more grateful for the fact that we sent the daughter a keychain because she got her driver's license. So I think it's just the little touches, Bob, that you do. You know, have birthdays. I mean, everyone's got a birthday strategy, I'm sure. You know, I heard from, I forget who it was at the Barron's conference, they're sending out thousands of gifts a year. We don't do that. But we call everyone on the birthday. We send them a text, we send them an email, we call them, we recognize everyone's birthday. We get an email every morning from our staff telling us whose birthday it is today. Maybe one little takeaway.
Just one thing, just one statement. We convinced that client by the end of the meeting that nobody cares more about them and their issues than us. That's essentially how we differentiate. And everything else happens after that. But by the time that meeting's over, they are absolutely convinced, Bob, that there's nobody other than them and their family that's going to care more, work harder, be more strategic to help them do what they need to do.
And you can't fake that. I mean, people have an amazing intuition about disingenuousness and who is really authentic. And you just can't fake it.
We were asked a really tough question last week, Robert and I. This is the deal that he was talking about, the big liquidity event. At the end of the meeting, the guy says,